Today on Mercedes Garage, Mercedes 5-cylinder diesel inline engines on Mercedes Garage. Hi and welcome back to another episode of Mercedes Garage. Today we'll be talking about the Mercedes inline 5-cylinder diesel engine. As our previous video on the inline 4-cylinder, now we're going to talk about the inline 5-cylinder. We'll show you some pictures. There's not many of these, so this shouldn't be that long. But first, we're going to tell you about the differences of glow plugs that were used. As you can see on the screen with the picture, the first glow plug that was used in Mercedes diesel engines was a filament type glow plug, seen by the large filament that was shaped like a sort of like a curve like this, so you can see it better in the photo. That was used from the late 60s to 1980. After 1980, the glow plug changed to a pencil type, which was a quicker reacting glow plug to thus heat the engine and ignite the fuel. That glow plug was used until the end, basically until probably the early 90s. I'm not sure when it ended, but I know that it started in 1980 on the Mercedes diesel engines. One other thing about the differences of the glow plugs is the pencil glow plug lasts longer than the filament glow plug, which had a little shorter life expectancy. The second difference, I said one, there's another one. It's quicker, the pencil, than the filament. And there's a third, as I'm now thinking about, sorry about that. The third difference is, besides being quicker with the pencil, if one glow plug fails when you have the filament type, pre-1980, what happened would be is you lose, the engine won't start because they're in a series of a chain connected to each other. So if one failed, they all failed. So it doesn't matter if glow plug 1, 2, 3, 4, or glow plug 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 had failed, the engine would not start. Now on the pencil type, that one is different, thus making the engine still run even on one glow plug. The engine will still start. Maybe not quite as well if you have 2 or 3 or 4 or 3 out of 5, but at least the engine would start, as the other type, the filament type, will not. Okay, so that's why I'm mentioning about glow plugs, and when we're talking about engines, it is related, so I figured we'll talk briefly about the differences of the two types of glow plugs. Oh, and one other thing with the pencil one could work, like I said before the engine would still run. It's just a better glow plug. I'm not sure, I think you can upgrade the filament type to the pencil type. I think you can. Okay, that said, let's get into the video today is the inline 5-cylinder diesel engine. First, in 1974, about that time, this is pre-W123s, Mercedes came up with the first ever 5-cylinder inline diesel engine for a passenger car. It may be the first ever for any vehicle. I'm not sure if trucks had 5, maybe they did, but I know that it's the first one ever fitted to a car. So we'll talk about the famous and legendary OM617 engine. So as you can see on the screen, excuse me while I bend down to read this, that this is probably, this engine, the 617 and the 616, and there's a few other ones, were probably the best diesel engine ever made of any manufacturer. And here's a photo of the 617 engine. This is in a 300 SD, but it's the same engine in 300 SD as in a 240D. This engine was initially offered as a national rated aspirated engine, meaning that it wasn't a turbo. The turbo came later for the US, as foreign countries did not have the turbo as standard equipment, but the US did. So that's a difference that was done. And that gave the engine more horsepower. We were now in the probably about 85 to 90 horsepower with a turbo, about 100 on later 300Ds. So we're now getting into on the turbo, not on the non-turbo. And this shows you the differences of the cars. Here's the 77 to 85. It was in the 115 initially, in 74 to 76. Then it became in the 123, as I said, the 300D turbo. Well, from 82 became the turbo 300D, W123. The 300D long body, which is a limo basically, 300TD, which is the wagon. I'll stop that for a second. It's getting a little head there. The 300TD, which is the station wagon, which was initially non-turbo up until 82 in the US, which then became a turbo. I think again that was just like the sedans. It was both in Europe and in other countries offered as both turbo and non-turbo. But the turbos were exclusively sold only in America. You could not have got in 84, 85 a 300D non-turbo. So from 82 to 85, they were all turbos. Okay, it was also used in the vans, that 209D, sorry, I can't see this. And then we had the turbocharger. Was added, it was on the W116, was used. That continued to the end of that production, which ended in 1980, which became the W126, which it was in that car for several years. Here's a 116. That one was in. It was in the 300 SD. They're saying 85. Well, oh yeah, because that car went beyond 85. The 126 went until 1991. So, and of course, Wikipedia is not showing the pictures of the right cars. So, sorry about that. I'm not sure what this AMG version of it is or was. I'm not sure about that, so we're going to talk about that one. One little, before that goes to the next screen, one little interesting thing, and I'll try to get a photo. I have a photo of it I could put in, as you're probably seeing right now. The 617 engine was developed in the, of all cars, the C111, which was a test vehicle for Mercedes that was going to be the first ever Mercedes with a rotary engine. But for whatever reasons, Mercedes scrapped the whole project by the early 70s. By 71, 72, it was abandoned. But the vehicles were still around, and what they used them for was to test the 617 engines on their track in, yeah, oh boy, I can't pronounce, forgive me if I'm mispronouncing the name, Unragen, Germany, was where their testing facility was, and they would take the engine, the diesel engine, and put it into this sports car, the C111, and test it. And that also later when they developed the turbo engine version of that same engine. Okay, so now we're going to proceed forward. The next one is the OM602 diesel engine, 5-cylinder. This was used, what year does it say? 85 to 2002. So they went quite a few years with this engine. It was also a very good engine. Next to the 617 and the 616 and some other ones, this was probably one of their best engines. It was used in the 190 series. It was used in the 124 series. It was used in the G class, the G250 GD, which was never sold in the US. The only way you would be able to get one of those cars here was to gray market, import it from another country into America. It was outsourced to that Sangyang company from Korea. It was used in the T1 van. It was used in the GD290. Again, in another 190D, which that one was sold here. The 250D was not sold in the US, but the 300D 2.5 turbo was sold in the US. Another G class, and then finally the W210, but not as the 290, that was not sold in the US. And a couple more Sanyongs, and another Sangyong, and a U-Mog from 1978 to 1989. That was also that same engine used. That was the OM602. And I'm trying to do this in two parts here, so forgive me if there's a little bit of a lag. Now the next one is the OM605. That was used in the, this says E250, that E250 W124T, which is a wagon, was never sold in the US. So only ones that were basically ever sold diesel-wise in the US in a 124 was a 300D. Not the 123 300D, but the 124 300D. That was sold in a C class, W202, W124 again, but a 250D was not sold here. So, but in some countries it was. Just bear with me for a sec. It was in the 210, the W210, as the 250, which was not sold in the U.S., and the W210 250, which also turbo diesel, that was also not sold in the U.S. And that engine, this, what was that? This OM605 was also available in a turbo, non-turbo, and turbo version. So if I go back to it for a second, I got a little mixed up. Here's an OM612 or 612. That one was in a few different ones. That was in the W2, a Sprinter that was in a G class, W210 E class. It was in a W203, which is a C class, and that engine was used in 2005 to 2014. There was a C class for Belgium, as you saw the Belgium flag came up. I'm doing this earlier. It was also used in a diesel Jeep Grand Cherokee, which was never sold in the U.S. And now a C30 CDI AMG, that car was also never sold in the U.S. There was really never an AMG that I know of. I may be wrong, comment below if there was ever a diesel AMG that was in the US. I don't remember ever seeing it or hearing about it. So please comment if there is such a thing as a diesel AMG, because it was not, it may have been for Europe and for other countries, but it was not for here in the US. And just give me a second, this went back to the previous one, because for some reason the next model engine, as you can see on the list in this video, is actually the same engine. So they used the same engine twice with two different model numbers. I don't know why they did that, but Mercedes did that. We'll see that we'll go to the next screen. This OM647 diesel engine, and that was used. There's not much on this one, as you can see in this video of the OM647 engine. There's not much on it. It was made from 2002 to 2006, and it doesn't even tell you what models it was in. So I'm sorry, I can't tell you anything more about that one. So if you know anything more about it, please let me know in the comments below, because I can't get any more information on that one. So let's see. So next time we'll talk about the inline 6-cylinder engines of Mercedes. There's a few of those, as I see, about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the 5 or 6. So we'll talk about the inline 6 next time. In this ongoing video series of Mercedes-Benz engines. I just think it's a fascinating topic to talk about which engines were in each model, and forgive me if I don't know every single one of them, because in the US the models are different than in Germany, and Germany is different than in rest of Europe and South America, and Australia, New Zealand is different than the rest of Europe. So they all have their own models for different parts of the world, basically. So we'll talk about that. And one other little thing we'll talk about, basically, now this is not in every case, the number of the vehicle. So for example, 240D, S430 means the liter of the engine. So a 240D is a 2.4 liter diesel engine. An S430, in the US anyway, is a 4.3 liter gasoline engine. Now, that does not always mean that. So there is some exceptions. The exception would be a 190E 2.3 liter. There's that one. There's the 420. Is it a 420? 420 SEL from the 70s, but it was a 6.9 liter. So there is, we'll get into that. That's another video series we'll talk about, but I just mentioned that in a brief sense, that's important to know that because of the engines and the engine sizes, and there's some engines that are the same even though they're different liters. For example, an S430 is the M113 engine, but the S500 is also the M113 engine too. How did they accomplish this? Well, you have to watch the next video series about gasoline engines. We're almost done with diesel. We have inline 6. That'll be next time. So thank you for watching, and thank you for the 26 new subscribers. Thank you very much. We need some more, so please subscribe. Please like by giving the thumbs up. Please comment. Please share. And again, keep on motoring in your Mercedes-Benz.